without fail, every single one of these major grooming gang incidents occurred in a Labour-run council area.
If it uncovers too much, it can bring down this Labour government. I want to deal with all paedophiles. I'd like to hang them all, even the white British ones I want to hang. Hi everybody, and welcome back to Nick Talks. This episode's amazing returning guest is David from the Silver Fox Hot Takes. And David, congratulations, you've hit 50,000 subscribers a day or two ago. Well done.
Yeah, we got that. I mean, that was just cracking. It was just like these things happen. It takes a long time when you get up there, but it is absolutely brilliant to be back. It's been busy, hasn't it? Sometimes, when you do these YouTubes, and sometimes you get days where there's very little happening, and you're sort of scratching around in the sand looking for a story, and then sometimes it's really just coming in like shrapnel. You're like, God, there's not enough hours in the day. Well, it's been like that, hasn't it? With so many different things going on in the world. It keeps you busy. That's the thing. It passes the time, but by God, it's hard work sometimes, isn't it?
It is. And you just mentioned then about all these stories. Now, there's only the number one story at the moment, and has been for several weeks, and will continue to be so, I think, is the grooming gang scandal and how Labour are handling it. But before we jump into that, I want subscribers to go into the description of this video and click your link. Your link's there. Go to your channel and subscribe to David's channel. You won't be disappointed.
Thanks for the build.
No problem. I don't think this Labour government, could have handled this grooming gang atrocity any worse than they've handled it.
Absolutely agree. It's been a series of decisions, and every single decision has been, without fail, the wrong decision. And it's almost as though it's on purpose. Even if you were doing it randomly, you'd think they'd get something right, but never. They've not got one thing right on it.
It's the first time I'm ever going to say this about politicians or a political party, but they seem to be terrible liars. They can't seem to lie when everybody else would have lied, when everybody else would have just pretended or twisted the truth or said, yeah, we're going to hold an inquiry, knowing we're not. They can't even lie like a decent politician. That's how bad this Labour government is.
Oh, they're inept, aren't they? They are totally inept. But then look at what they're being led with. He's useless, isn't he? But I think it's very. How I'm trying to think of the word. There's something underlying. There's something fundamental within Labour. Because one only has to look at the record of the Labour Party. They've got so many. I think it's up to 77 members now over the years that have been involved in sort of sexual shenanigans, and often involving children. And so they don't really want to open that particular can of worms. On top of that, of course, without fail, every single one of these major grooming gang incidents occurred in a Labour-run council area. You have even Labour councillors themselves involved, but all the officials, senior police, everything like this. And now, if a senior policeman is doing something, it's because there's political pressure on him to do it. It's all coming down, and it's all coming from Labour. Labour don't want to open up a full investigation, national investigation, because fingers will get pointed, and we all know where the fingers get pointed to, straight back at the Labour Party. And what is the worst of this, of course, is that the current Prime Minister, the leader of the Labour Party, used to be the DPP, and he, as DPP, refused to prosecute a lot of these grooming gangs. And unbelievably, one of the things he did is that he signed off on prosecuting a child victim of the grooming gangs and didn't prosecute the grooming gang. That is the measure of the Labour Party, and that is why they do not want a national inquiry, because they are all deeply, deeply involved.
Yes, I agree. There's two political reasons why Labour, and to a certain extent the Tories, let's not forget Tories 14 years in power and did nothing So again, I don't want to be placing all the blame on Labour. The Tories did nothing as well. And worse than that, Tories are now using this as a political football to score points when they've just come out of office for 14 years and did nothing about it.
They get the 14 years to do something and decided they weren't going to. But now all of a sudden, oh, now we'll use it because it's popular. We can beat them with it.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
cowardice.
Yeah. But let's look at Labour.
It's the same cowardice as Labour, though, but just for a different reason.
Exactly. So Labour's not looked into this and don't want to look at this for two reasons. The first reason is they rely heavily on Muslim votes in Muslim areas. And so paedophilia isn't a Muslim problem. Paedophilia is a human problem. What is a Muslim Pakistani problem is something we call the grooming gangs. That particular crime of grooming white, poor, vulnerable girls with alcohol, cigarettes, takeaways, taxi rides, and then having your friends, family, uncles, cousins abusing them and then driving them to other cities to be abused again. That is a predominantly Pakistani Muslim problem. I want to deal with all paedophiles. I'd like to hang them all, even the white British ones. I want to
Yeah,
hang all of
all
them.
of them, hang them by the balls. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm sick of people muddying the water by talking about other types of paedophilia. I want to talk about the grooming gang paedophilia. And the Labour Party know they're going to lose Muslim votes over this. The other political part of this as well is because the Labour Party have bought into identity politics, multiculturalism, all the woke nonsense. They cannot have somebody saying multiculturalism led to this problem. We imported this problem into the UK. Well, if diversity is our strength, how can diversity be raping children? You can't hold both those things in your head. So therefore, they never wanted this discussion in the first place because it will destroy their ideology they've been promoting for decades.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, multiculturalism was an experiment, but I think the experiment has failed undoubtedly, and I do think it's a cultural issue, and I think it's because they don't integrate, and they loathe us, and they have the Quran to fall back on, where the perfect man had a 9-year-old wife, and so they think it's perfectly acceptable. Labour can't say that, of course, because they're so involved, as you say, with the identity politics side of things. And I'm going to say you're right with the need for the Muslim vote, but I'm going to suggest that that is now becoming less important because we've seen at the last election how there were Islamist parties getting elected, and I think going forward we're going to see Muslims voting for Islamist parties, not the Labour Party. And once that happens, of course, well, the Labour Party are finished, aren't they? And everything that they've done up to now to try and protect the Muslims because of this perception that they vote for them will suddenly walk away. And just as an aside, and something that really annoyed me at the time, if you remember back to Southport, after Starmer was talking about this, and he stood there and he didn't say, "I'm going to protect the children of this country." He said, "I'm going to protect the Muslims of this country." His words, 3 dead children. And his words were, "I will protect and make sure of the safety of the Muslims in this country."
And that's because to him, the problem of Southport wasn't 3 dead children killed by an Islamic lunatic. The problem was white racists. That was the problem of Southport.
Right, yeah, because if you object to children being killed, you're a racist.
Yeah,
That's how Labour view it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But Labour need to read the history book because we had the far left and socialists thinking they could control Islam in the late 70s in Iran. And it was the socialists who started the revolution thinking they could use the Ayatollah Khomeini as a puppet. And the second he got into power, what did he do? He killed all the socialists.
Yes.
You cannot
Yeah.
control an ideology like Islam.
No, it can't be controlled. It can't be integrated, and it can't be merged because it's an absolute. There's no evolution, and that's what they choose. That's what they choose. There's nothing we can do about it, but it doesn't mean we have to accept it. And we certainly shouldn't. And we certainly shouldn't be accepting the mass rape of children in the name of racial tolerance.
Yeah. Yeah. The only good news with Islam is a reformation is coming. The internet, the internet and social media, and everyone having smartphones across the world, they're looking at TikTok videos that are telling them all the contradictions in the Quran, all the things they've been told and been told it's in the Quran turn out not to be in the Quran.
Or they've been corrupted.
Yeah, exactly.
Something that says one thing, but they've corrupted it into another thing. And yeah, I quite agree. To be just as an aside, which I found quite interesting, is that the fastest growing religion in Iran, sorry, apologies, Iran is Christianity.
Yes. Thousands of mosques have been closed down over the last couple of years because of non-attendance.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's so. But let's get back to Labour and the grooming gang
yeah.
scandal. This is one of those scandals. I mean, this is one of the reasons why they didn't want a national inquiry, is because they don't know what it's going to uncover, and they know if it uncovers too much, it can bring down this Labour government. Hence why they don't want a national inquiry. Hence why they're going to kick it back to local councils and say, you can do your own little inquiries. But how can Labour councils do an inquiry when the Labour council is as guilty as the grooming gangs for covering it
You're
all?
marking your own
Yeah,
homework.
exactly.
And when indeed Labour councillors were doing the
Yeah.
abuse.
And council staff.
And also, the councils don't have the resources. They can barely keep schools open. How
Yeah.
on earth are they going to spend £1 million or so on a basic inquiry?
Yeah.
It's a joke.
And these inquiries are political. So even if we had a national inquiry, I don't want a national inquiry. It wouldn't be worth the paper it's written on. Andy Burnham did an inquiry in Greater Manchester. And the people they wanted to speak to said, yeah, I'm not coming to speak to you.
No, he didn't have the power to enforce it.
What we need is a Truth and Justice Commission, one with legal powers to compel you to turn up under oath and speak to the commission.
Under oath, yeah, and with imprisonment as an option if you don't. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you perjure yourself. And what we need to do then is we say to these people on the stand, this is, you're lower down the chain here. You're only a sergeant in the police. You're only a social worker. If you grass up everyone above you now and tell us what you were told to do,
Absolutely.
you then will not be prosecuted, but you grass upwards.
You say you're a constable, if you can grass the sergeant up, you walk free. You get the sergeant, you can grass the inspector up, you walk free. And eventually you have the chief constables. And when you start locking up chief constables and mayors and senior councillors, and these people are in jail and they're doing 20 years, and I actually think that they should get a fixed term for each and every individual case. So you're not getting 10 years for 10,000. No, you're getting 5 years each, 10,000 cases, rest of your life in prison.
Yeah, yeah, and I'd be quite happy.
Frighten the shit out of them,
Yeah, because if you put a load of rats in a Hessian sack and shake it, they will fight among themselves, and that's what we need to do. Put all these rats in a sack in court, shake it and go, start fighting with each other and grassing, and the ones who grass first will let you guys off. And this whole
always grass upwards. Yeah, grass upwards and get the senior, because often in these cases, the senior people walk away and it's some low level or junior level that takes the rap. Well, let's not do that. Let's not have juniors taking the rap. Let's get those at the top. And that includes politicians as well, MPs. What was it? Harriet Harman, when she was representing Pi, she said that consensual sex with an adult does not harm a child. Her words.
Yeah. Well, last year we had about 1 or 2 years ago, it might have been last year, 18 months ago. The former, she was the head of Oldham Council at the time, a lady called Amanda Chatterton, stood up in a public meeting being filmed. This is on YouTube, about the grooming gang scandal. And she said, I've spoken to some survivors today, and even though it wasn't a pleasant experience, it hasn't ruined their lives. And it was like, I can't believe what you have just said.
No.
And
these people are delusional.
Yes, absolutely delusional. And then the next election, 2 months later, she lost her seat and was kicked out. Rightly so.
Rightly so, yeah.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, it's only because these girls are powerless. They come from powerless people. Imagine that those children were sons of, well, the daughters presumably of politicians, of police officers, of people with authority. Let me tell you, it wouldn't have happened. There'd be knocks at the door at 3 o'clock in the morning, and people have been dragged out.
I've got an example where I can prove this to be true. Poor white people are treated as scum.
Mm.
10 years ago, no, about 15 years ago, I was working for Manchester Council based in police stations looking at crime. And there was a little issue with legal highs at the time, where middle class kids were coming to the city centre and buying legal highs legally from shops that were selling it. And then some of these middle class kids were having reactions to it and being taken to hospital. What did the government do? They banned all legal highs because middle class kids were being affected from it. And what did that create?
Better people. The better people, yeah. But the lower orders, it doesn't matter. But the better people were being affected because that's how they view it.
Yeah, but at the same time, we've got poor white vulnerable girls being gang raped over decades, over at least 50 years, and governments of any colour have done
They all
nothing
ignored it.
because we don't we look upon those people as not worth saving, as in it was your fault. You brought this upon yourself. You wouldn't have done it if you was my child because I'd have brought you up better. I'm a better parent. We're better than you.
Yeah. But it's treating these children as animals. That's how they look at it. It's like, well, they don't feel it the same as normal people. They're dehumanizing them.
Yeah. George Orwell talked in his book, The Road to Wigan Pier, which is a great book if you haven't read it. Great book. It shows the poverty we used to live in when white people had privilege. You look at the poverty.
White privilege. Oh, yes, you had the privilege to starve to death in rags.
Yeah, but he talks about a saying in London at the time, 150 years ago, that there's no point giving Northerners baths in their houses because they'll only fill it.
Pour coal in it.
They'll only put coal in it. That's how, even then, the snobbery of the poor white working class, and that hasn't changed.
I keep my coal in a bunker.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't have coal. I have central heating.
Oh no! You see, when I found out a couple of years ago, there were actually you couldn't buy any more real coal. You're going to get the smokeless stuff. I went out and bought a lifetime supply of proper coal.
Right, is that illegal to burn that?
I live in a village. I don't have Clean Air Act.
Oh, right.
So yes, I can burn it. Yeah.
Right. Good. And that's actually that question. I thought to myself, you shouldn't be asking that because if he answers it now and it is illegal, you've made him answer it on air.
No. Where we are, it's fine.
Right. Good. I hope Elon Musk's involvement in this has blown the lid off it. I can't see this being swept under the carpet again like it has done every time this blows up. We're being discussed now on foreign news channels about in the UK we allow our children to be gang raped.
All over the world.
Is all over the world. If this was a foreign country, there'd be British people in Parliament, MPs in Parliament, talking about this, going, we need to impose sanctions on that third world country until they stop raping their children.
Yeah. The hypocrisy is strong. But you know what sickened me, just as an aside there, when they had the vote about a week ago or so, I can't remember how long ago, they had the vote about not having the national inquiry. Obviously, Labour, they all pile into the no lobby. And they all come back and you see all these Labourers going, we won. They're all sitting there with their smug little grins. They're going, we won. They're sitting there grinning at the fact that they're not going to investigate mass child rape. And you're laughing and grinning about that. Are you absolutely sure that's the right look? I just honestly see Labour now, and all I see are paedophiles. Because they're either doing it or they're letting it happen. And if they're letting it happen, that's complicit, And they just sicken me now. That's where I am with it.
Well, let's hope Elon's involvement and keeping this on the news cycle, the fact people are demanding inquiries, the fact people are demanding heads. And if you look at the Tory party in reform, they are and should be running with this because there's a good chance one of them or a coalition of them are going to be in power at the next election, in which case we We need to be concentrating now on them saying, what are you going to do about this? Because they're the next government. And I want someone to do something about this, even if we have to wait a couple of years for them to get into power.
Nick, I'm going to make a prediction, and I'm going to predict that a full investigation or a full inquiry will happen because there's now so many backbench Labours that are calling for it. We've had a few that have come out openly and asked for it, including Andy Burnham. But apparently there are quite a few that are wanting it, but they're not putting their name to it. So on lobby terms, they're talking to the press saying on lobby terms, said no mention, don't mention the war, no names, but I want one. I want one. And I think the pressure will burn. I think it's a slow burn. I think the pressure will come. And I think that Starmer will have to back down and have the full inquiry. I predict he will.
Yeah, well, as we're filming this, the rumours on Twitter today is that Yvette Cooper in Parliament this afternoon will be announcing that every council in the UK can launch its own inquiry into this. That's
Oh, I'll keep an eye out for that.
it's a crap halfway house. It means nothing.
It's not what's needed, but at least it's something.
Yeah, and you can't have councils marking their own homework when they're as guilty as the major government for this. But they know this is damaging them, so they're not. So we will see if that happens and where it's going to go. But my focus now is got in the Tories and Reform to start stating and promising what they're going to do because they're going to make the next government.
Yeah, oh, yeah, undoubtedly. Yeah.
David, cheers a lot for coming along again today. Let's
No
do
problem at
this
all, my friend.
again soon, especially if Rachel Reeves gets the axe or Starmer
Oh,
goes.
if that happens, we've definitely got to do a quick blast on that.
We do. And for people listening, don't forget, go in the descriptions, click the link for David's channel. Make sure you follow. You won't regret it. Cheers, David, and I'll catch up with you again soon.
Thanks very much. Always a pleasure. Bye, and bye to everyone.